This week we will be talking about Amazon CodeWhisperer as part of the curriculum for week 11. Now, what is CodeWhisperer? CodeWhisperer is basically AWS's version of a coding companion. It's called the AI Coding Companion. I will just go through a few things directly from the website. It helps build applications faster, more securely, being your coding companion. It also can help you get things done way faster. One of the methods of using this is by writing what you want as a comment. Then when you press the enter button, it now provides suggestions for you based on what you have written or based on what you ask it to do. From the suggestions it has given to you, you can decide to press your left arrow key or right arrow key to choose from the various options it has given. If it is out of options, once you keep pressing the left arrow key, the options will not change or the suggestions will not change, then you know that you are the last suggestion. From our hands-on, we'll see that. Then if you decide to go with the suggestion it has offered, once you press your tab key, then it takes that suggestion and actually adds it to your code or your script. This is an example here with the JavaScript file. It says pass a CSV string of songs and return the list, which should include position, original chart date, artist, and title. Ignore lines starting with the hash character. And this is the code it suggested. So if you have multiple suggestions, once you just keep pressing your left arrow key, your right arrow key rather, it shows you all the other suggestions. Once it is done, it does not change. It just shows the last one. If you want to go back to the others, use your left arrow key. So left, right arrow keys go through the suggestions it has offered to you. Then tab gives you or select that particular suggestion you've chosen. Also have code with confidence. CodeWhisperer can flag or filter code suggestions that resemble open source training data. You also get the associated open source project repo URL and license so that you can easily review them and add attribution. So unlike GPT 3.5, where it just gives you code, if CodeWhisperer is suggesting codes for you and this code was referenced from a particular place, it also show you that so-and-so code was gotten from here. This is the name of the repo, this is the name of the template, this is the line. As you see here, CodeWhisperer reference log. It shows us where it got this particular code from, even the line number. CodeWhisperer also offers security. It helps scan our code or the code it has suggested to make sure there's no security flaw. If it detects security flaws, it lets you know. So scans your code to detect how to find vulnerabilities and get code suggestions to remediate them immediately. Aligns to best practices for tackling security vulnerabilities, such as those outlined by Open Worldwide Application Security Projects, or those that don't meet crypto library best practices and other similar security best practices. It can also be integrated into a majority of our popular tools, such as VS Code, IntelliJ, PyCharm, AWS Cloud9, and the AWS Lambda console. Supported languages: Python, Java, JavaScript, Typescript, C#, and a couple of others. You also have VS Code on Amazon SageMaker, where we have an online version of VS Code called CodeServer. I'll also go to that. If you went through the labs for this week, the labs take you to Amazon SageMaker, where it creates a CodeServer, which is an online version of VS Code. So instead of working on your local machine, you can use VS Code in a virtual environment. So it helps you code 57% faster, roughly, by statistics, and 27% more likely to succeed. So this is a brief overview of AWS CodeWhisperer. Let's see how to install this locally. The labs that we're given explains how you can work with CodeWhisperer on an online version of VS Code using SageMaker. So if you would like to go through that, please, you can always review the CodeWhisperer workshop for the week. And it gives you step-by-step explanations on how to do that. So this is a suggested project for the week. Using CodeWhisperer or Python, it gives you code you would need to setting up your environment here. So with this, you can use a hosted IDE. This CloudFormation template will install SageMaker, will create a code server, and you have the online version of VS Code. Now, why I did not go on this project is because it is a Python-based project. I currently do not know enough of Python to teach online. So I decided to work with what I know best, which is Typescript. So my examples will be in Typescript, and I would not be using the online version. I'll be using VS Code installed on my system. So everyone can come here and see how you can set up code server to use VS Code online, while I will show how you can set this locally on your system. So without further ado, let me share my screen, my system screen. Okay, so my working environment is VS Code, right? And first things first, if you are working with VS Code and you would like to integrate AWS, or you would like to work with CodeWhisperer, you will first have to go to your extensions. When you click on extensions, you search for AWS Toolkit. When you see AWS Toolkit, you click on it and you install. I have already installed mine. So once you click on install, it installs AWS Toolkit for you, right? After installing AWS Toolkit, you will now have the AWS badge by the side of your screen. The badge is on the left side. When you click on AWS, it will first connect. If you have a default instance or a default user, you have user parameters on your system, or you've configured a user to your AWS CLI, it can connect automatically to your default user and gives you an overview of all the services that you have currently running. For example, in US East 1, I have my API gateway. These are all the API gateways I currently have. And I can invoke a particular gateway. I can copy the URL, copy the name, copy the ARM right here from VS Code. I don't need to open my console to do any of this. So these are some of the things you can do. But for today, our focus is on CodeWhisperer. So you'll find CodeWhisperer down here. If you have not already connected before, you would see a request for connection, right? But I've already connected. Is there someone here whose system is open and who has VS Code and has not connected CodeWhisperer before? So we'll use your system to do this demo while I walk you through it. No one has an open system with VS Code. Okay, all right, Innocent. You can mute your mic, please.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. So, do you have your system with you?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll stop sharing so you would share your screen. So that for this first part, we'll use your system that has not been configured prior. All right, please share. He has left the meeting, probably network. Okay, I'll then continue sharing then. So let me see if we can. Okay, so basically this is how it looks. So like I said, you click on your AWS icon here, then you will see this. It will show you start, right? When you click on start, it now opens up a dialog for you where you can configure CodeWhisperer using a builder ID. It takes you to a page where you now put in your details, which is your email address and your name, to create a builder ID for you, right? Once you are done putting your email address and your name, you click on next. It will send a verification code to your email. Then you copy the verification code, put back here, click on verify. Then you have this page. It will ask you to input your username and password again. Once you do that, you click on create AWS builder ID. Then to show you these two permissions, enable CodeWhisperer analysis and enable CodeWhisperer completions. All you need to do is click on allow and you're done. It just shows you a small green page and tells you to go back to VS Code. Now, once you return to VS Code, you would meet, let me pause this. Once you get to VS Code, you meet this, right? Then you meet these auto suggestions on, or you turn it on yourself. So that is just the workflow for creating the ID. So I want to turn it on. I click on resume auto suggestions. And now we're going to have our hands-on demonstration with CodeWhisperer. So what do I want to do? Currently in my folder, I have a serverless application model, SAM, for working with serverless. I currently have a database and I have a Lambda function, which will be used in registering members of the next AWS expedition, right? So the workflow is from the front end, just as we have in Ethereum, you fill the form, you click send. The form via a post request will send that data, which is in this form. This is the payload format, right? First name, last name, email, phone, age, country, gender, LinkedIn, blog, and date. This is the payload that will be sent from the front end form to API gateway. API gateway would now send this payload into my Lambda function. The Lambda function will then get the payload, add the name of the current expedition for me, and add the name of the cohort, and then put this item into the database. This is the workflow I want. This is how my registration is going to happen. For the previous registration, Expedition 1, what I did was I simply did a direct proxy integration between API gateway and DynamoDB. I use API Gateway as a service provider to DynamoDB. I didn't the Lambda function. Well, now I would like to put a Lambda function to be able to demonstrate CodeWhisperer. So I have already set up. I've already set up my resources. This is my SAM template file, Serverless Application Model template file. I have my first resource, which is the DynamoDB table. My partition key is email because everybody must have a unique email. I also have my serverless function, which will be the one to get the payload from the front end, process it, and then push it to the DynamoDB table. So I have created these already using my serverless application model templates. If you have done any of the last two labs for the last 2 weeks, the week for serverless and the week for event application, you would have already come across how to use serverless application models. But for today, this is not the focus. So I have my Lambda function, I have my DynamoDB table. The only thing I really need is the Lambda function that will execute what I want it to, right? So like I said, what I want is this Lambda function would get the payload coming in from the front end. It would add the name of the challenge, which is expedition, and it is also going to add the name of the cohort. And when it is done, it should export or put this item into the DynamoDB database. So let's start. Like I said, one of the first things to do when you want to work with CodeWhisperer, there are different ways you can. CodeWhisperer can be your coding companion. You can start by writing a comment. Then when you press the enter button, it will give you suggestions on that comment, right? You can also just start coding. Then it gives you suggestions on what it thinks is best. Multiple suggestions, you sift through, you pick a particular one you want. So for today, I would start with the comment method by writing out a comment. Before we proceed, like I said, this is the payload. This is what I expect. This is the kind of data I expect from my front end into my function. Since I'm using Typescript, I'd like to create an interface. If you don't understand interfaces, don't worry, you need to be alarmed. We will sort that later. So I already did that here. Save everyone time. So I went to ChatGPT. I said create a TypeScript type / interface with the following, and I gave it the data that I expect to be returned, and it created this interface for me, which is exactly the interface I'm working with. So I'm going to start by adding this interface in my code. So I'll come here and I have my interface. So the all data coming in should be of this format. You should have the first name, last name, middle name, email, age, country, like that. So it's already suggesting. It's saying export default user. This is our first suggestion for the day. Now, when working with TypeScript, one of the first things you have to do is import the libraries that you need to work with. Not one TypeScript, all languages. So my first command to it is I need a list of imports to put a DynamoDB item of type user into a DynamoDB database. This is what I want, right? Before I start coding, I need the list of imports. What our libraries do you think I will need to enable me get an item and put that item in a DynamoDB database? So let's see what suggestion it gives me. Let me take this guy down. I do not need you at this moment. So what suggestions would you give me? Let's see. Number one, import DynamoDB from AWS SDK. AWS SDK alone is version 2. I would not like to use version 2, so I'll press my left arrow key. It's still giving me this. I do not need this. I do not need this. I do not need this. Okay, this is the last suggestion it's giving me. All right, I do not need any of this currently because I want to make use of version 3, which is for those with JavaScript knowledge. For version 3 of AWS SDK, you have the AWS SDK /client DynamoDB. So I can now go ahead to start writing. It's still giving me this guy. Let's see. Import DynamoDB client. Exactly. So this is what I want. This is version 3 I want to work with, not version 1 or version 2. So I've put from, it has completed it for me. I click on tab. Tab means I've accepted what is giving me currently. Then what is your next suggestion? It says I should import DynamoDB document client, put command and put command input. Why? Because I want to put an item into the database, right? So I need the put command. I need my DynamoDB command. I may or may not use the put command input. If I'm accepting this option, I'll click tab, but let's see if it has other options. So I'll click my right arrow button. Okay, it's giving me more suggestions. I still have my DocumentDB client, which I know I will need. I have my put command. I don't need a query command because query is to receive. I do also need a get command. And he added something for me too. He added a region, const region, for cases where I'll need to configure my client. Let's see if I have more suggestions. I click my right arrow button again. Okay, it has given me more options. But he also added SDK, which I would not need. So that's all. Now I'll go back to the first one he gave me. This is preferably what I want. So I'll press tab. Tab means I've accepted. What's your next suggestion? Use region as US is 1. Okay. I'll need region to configure. I click on tab. I press enter. So now it is creating a client for me, right? From DynamoDB client. It's creating this client and it's using the value of region, which is US is 1. You on your own now can modify your US is 1 to whatever region you're currently working with. Okay, this is what I need next. I click tab, I accept. What's next? Now I do not need marshalling options. Now I do not need the options. Okay. Typically, the next thing to do is to create the document client. Okay, let's see. Create the document client. So if you see, it has given me a reference from where it's suggesting this code from. Reference code under MIT, view full details in CodeWhisperer reference log. So even though it's copying and giving you code, it's telling you where exactly it got the code from, right? Let me scroll down so I have a better view. So these are the marshalling options it's giving me. I do not need these ones. Okay, yeah, here we go. So this is the client that I need. DDB document client, DynamoDB clients from this, yes. Then this user you're asking me to create, I currently do not need to create this particular type of user. So once we have the client, that's enough. So I don't need to create a user, so I'll just delete this. So now I have my document client. Now, since I have, at this point, I have the inputs I need to work with. I have the imports. I also need to now work with Lambda functions. In the Lambda function, I need to create a handler, right? And the handler is getting events from API gateway. So now I would need CodeWhisperer to give me a list of imports to work with API gateway in a Lambda function. Let's see the suggestions, because I'll need import API gateway proxy events, proxy results context. This is 1. This is 2. Okay. Yeah. So we have this. This is basically also what I want from AWS Lambda. So I'm done with this. So I have my events from my events that will be working, that will be going into AWS Lambda. I have my libraries to put into DynamoDB, and I have my clients from this. So I'm done with this section now. This is everything I need to proceed to work with the Lambda function. I can leave the comments here. I do not need them currently. So now I need to build my Lambda function. What do I need? I need a Lambda function that will receive a request body of type user, which is up there. The email is a primary partition key, and I need to put this item into a DynamoDB table. So let's see if it will help us create that function. So I need a Lambda function that receives a request body of type user with email as the partition key, and put item into DynamoDB. All right, let's see what function it gives us. So it says we can do this. Oh yeah, it asked us to create users the last time. Okay, so export async. Okay, this is our function here now. Export async function handler. This is our event. Our event is of type API gateway proxy event. Yes, because I expect API gateway to do a proxy integration for me. Take everything in the body as item here. Then it has our put command input. So it is now making use of that put command input is suggested to us at the beginning, which I said we may or may not use. The table name is users. I'll give it mount table name. Why are you not suggesting again? Why be clear? All right, let's try again. Okay, so this is the same thing. So our table name is users here. Well, we can modify our table name. Then our item is user. Okay, it changes from item now to user. So everything coming from the event body should be of type user. It saves it as user constant. Bundle the entire user now and send that user as an item into a database. Then await, run your document client, send this new item into the database. If it works, return user added successfully. If it does not, return error adding user. Let's see if we have other suggestions. That's basically the same thing, but just in different ways. So we can work with this, yeah? But if I'm going to use this, I would have to now modify the code a little bit because I would like to add two things to the code. One, I would like to add the name of the challenge, and I also like to add the cohort. So I won't just take user directly. I will have to modify user a little bit. So let me go back to the first one it gave to me. This. Let's see if we work with this tab. Okay, so event body here is throwing an error. Because this should take a string, not null. So this has to be string. So I can say, okay, let me comment this out and see. Let's see, so let's do const user. They're giving me the same thing. User is equal to still JSON.pass. Okay, so if JSON.eventBody is true, then pass the event body. If it is not, then make it null. All right, that solves it. So straight up suggestion. So if there's an event body, pass the event body and pass it on to user. If there's no event body, make it null. So the next thing I need to do is work on this item here. Why? Because I do not want to just pass it as it is. Yeah. If I submit this code like this, the only thing that goes to the database is what has been sent to me from my front end, right? Any other thing that is not there will not be sent to the database. But like I said, this is the data coming in. This is the format from the client. But before it goes to the database, I also want to include the name of the expedition this person is part of and the cohort he's part of, right? You as a client, you don't have that business. I don't need you to know any of that. So this is what I'm now going to do. Since it has already told me that the entire thing that has been sent from the client is in user, I'm now going to modify this item. Let me see if it's, yeah, so it's already suggesting, okay, email, yes, first name, yes, last name, yes, phone, yes, age, yes, country, yes, gender, yes, LinkedIn, yes, blog, yes, date, yes. Voila. It has literally given me all the variables because it knows that based on this user type I gave to it, the user is supposed to contain a first name, last name, email, phone, country, and all of this. So if it is sending in all of that through the event body and I've set it of type user, then I'm going to put in the variable. Either it takes everything together as just this user or I break it down, right? And since I've broken it down now, it helped me now getting each of these keys from the main user object and passing it into these variables. So these are the things that are going into a database. Now, what I would like to do here, like I said earlier, is to include two variables, challenge, should be of type, or what challenge is this? AWS Expedition. And I would also like to add cohorts. Cohort is business cohort is better. So that's all. This is literally the only thing I added to this code. Oh yes, and I'll need to change the table name. I already have a table name. Table name is here. This is my table name. Sorry. This is my table name here. The table name is a variable. It is passed in during the creation of the table. And then my Lambda function has environment variables. And one of the environment variables is reg underscore table, right? So I'm going to reference this environment variable here. I would now have to do process.env.reg underscore table. So now it's going to get the table name from the environment variable, and this is the item it's going to pass in. So there's nothing else I need to add. It's going to return 500 if there's an error, return 200 if it's applied successfully. So as you see, CodeWhisperer wrote this code for me. All I need to do was give it suggestions. And where I needed it to do something else, once I start typing, it modifies my code for me and it shows me suggestions, and I can go with it. So I save my file, then I build using AWS SAM. Am I in the folder? Yes. So SAM build -- beta features. So I'm going to build this my template. Please, if you have any questions, you can ask while it's building.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand like what's in your templates.yam, like the configurations there. I don't know if
Okay.
as this thing is building. I just try to.
So there are just two things I have here. First, you need to specify that this is a serverless template. It is a little bit different from your normal cloud formation template, right? So you specify this transformation. So you transform this into your serverless template. SAM is serverless application model. When you're working with serverless applications, you might prefer to use them instead of your normal cloud formation templates because they're a bit more tailored towards the serverless side, right? As usual, this is our description, Ethereum cohorts, yada yada yada. Globals, function, timeouts, 3, then parameters. The first parameter I have here is event busting, which I'm currently not using. I might use it eventually, but I just left it here. Then the table name. I do not want to hard code my table name, right? So I have a table name variable which I can always override at any point in time during creation of my stack. But for now, the default value is expedition 2, which is the second cohort. So what resources am I creating? First, I'm creating a DynamoDB table. Yeah, I am referencing it to logical ID of reg table. The DynamoDB table, the properties, the table name is being referenced from this variable or this parameter. The parameter is called table name here. So I'm referencing this at this point. So I'm not giving it a name. I'm not hard coding a name for it here. Attribute definitions. First attribute is email, which stands for my partition key. You must have an email, right? It's of type string, key schema, email again, hash, provision throughput, read capacity, write 5 and 5. Can just go through that from documentation. The second item I am adding is the Lambda function. The Lambda function. This Lambda function is what will get the payload from API gateway, modify it, and send it to DynamoDB. So how do we create Lambda functions? Same way. My logical ID for Lambda function is user registration. Type AWS serverless function. Properties. Where is the code URI? Yeah.
Sorry. You know, like in normal times, it'd be like when you want to put the type, you put the name of the service itself. Like if it was DynamoDB, you put DynamoDB there. Is it because so
It's
Lambda
because
function
this
has
is
serverless as its type?
because
Is that
we're
not the
working
case?
with a serverless application model. We're using this is a SAM
Oh,
template, not a cloud formation template.
okay. I'm
So
just
if you're
noticing
working
the
with a
difference.
if you're working with a SAM template, it's a bit different from when you're working with a cloud formation template. It's still the same YAML file, right? But there are differences when it comes to properties, when it comes to some keys. If I can say Lambda function directly in cloud formation, it does not look exactly like this. You understand? Good.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's that. So this is the source code. Where exactly is going to get source code from SRC, which is here. Then what is the handler? The name of the file dot the name of the function you're exporting. So my file name is registration, then handler is the name of the function as we have here. Handler. Then what else? It's running on node 14. Environment variables. It needs to have a table because it is supposed to put the value into a table. So the environment variable I'm giving to it from the time of creation is reg table. And what is the name of the table? I'm referencing that table that was created. So if you get the name of that table and put here as value, know the environment production for it to create only production dependencies. Then the policy statement, it needs to have the authority to put an item into the DynamoDB table. So that is why we have this policy here. DynamoDB put item, then it's putting the item into a DynamoDB table using the ARN. It's referencing the table name again here. Then we have logs. You should put logs. You should create log streams and all that. Then I also have this put event permissions. I'm not using it yet, but eventually I also need to push some events to the event bus. Because I'm using TypeScript, I also have this section called metadata to tell Sam how to build this TypeScript project. It's using ESBuild, not TSC. It's supposed to minify it. Target is 20, ES 2020, source mark true, and this is the entry point, which is the name of the file. That is this. So that's basically it about the template. So I have done my SAM build. So he has built it. So now I'm going to deploy this particular function and I'll test. So to deploy, I've already deployed it once. You can use SAM deploy guided. But since I've deployed it before, I don't need it to show me what is changing. I'll do SAM deploy. No, what's that thing? Something change set. Let me see, change set to show me the correct one now. Yeah, no confirm change set. So SAM deploy no confirm change set. So now it's going to deploy my application to the cloud. Everything we built here will be deployed into the Lambda function. So these are those values you had earlier, those parameters. If I wanted to override any of them, then during the creation, when I do first SAM deploy dash guided, it will ask me for those names. Then I can change those names before creating the stack. So it's currently updating, and it's updating the Lambda function because I put in code. All right, we're done updating. So let us go into my AWS account. API gateway. So I have API gateway connected to the Lambda function. Yeah. So now I'm going to pass in data. I'm going to pass in data through API gateway, and the Lambda function is supposed to do what it's supposed to do and send that information to DynamoDB. First, let me go and get sample users. So I asked ChatGPT to use this interface and generate 5 different users for me. So these are 5 random users it gives them. So I can just come here, pick anyone. Let me see. Let me ask it to create Nigerian users with Nigerian names. Let me see if it will work. Create 5 sample data JSON. So you don't need to start stressing yourself over sample data that you need to use. Create 5 sample data in JSON from the interface. Use Nigerian user persona. Let's see if you can get Nigerian. Oh, nice. Chijoke Eze. Okay, so we have Nigerian users. Chijoke Eze with email. Ngozi Ade. Yoruba and Igbo. Wonderful. Chinyere Okonkwo. Ade Ogun. Wahala need to finish. Okay, so let's use the first person. Chijoke Eze. Right? Kosi, is this your brother? Akeze and Eze. Let's look for small trouble. So I've gotten this first user. I'll go to API gateway. I need to test my Lambda function that was just deployed. My Lambda function is tied to this AWS expedition, this expedition route, or this expedition resource. See it here, post. It has a post method integrated with Lambda. If I go to this post method, and I go to integration requests, and I go to edit, you see that it is integrated with Lambda, and the Lambda function is integrated with this, right? Expedition, because you got it from our user reg. This is our user reg function that we created. So I don't need to touch anything here. Let me just go back to resources. So let me test now and see. I don't have query strings, I don't have headers. The only thing I have is my request body. Chijoke's email, his phone number, his age, his country, his gender, his LinkedIn, his blog. Oh, and AI is nice, man. You just use AI and make your life easy. All right, let's test and see. Hope for the best. Yeah, user added successfully. Right? Status 200. User added successfully is the message that is meant to return to us. Where is it here? Here. User added successfully. So once it successfully registers, then he sends this message, and that's exactly what we've got in here. So our user has been added successfully. Our code works, all thanks to CodeWhisperer. Let us see the database. Expedition 2 is the name of our database. And you see that I have 2 users here. This is Chijoke. See him here. Chijoke is a John Doe was someone from yesterday, is a US citizen. Chijoke is a Nigerian. So you see Chijoke male is a John male Doe. So technically, we're done. I have created a Lambda function that would use for the registration of AWS Expedition 2, right? So this is how you can use CodeWhisperer to make your code easy, to be efficient, and all of that. So I think this is where we'll draw the curtain for today's class. The only thing left is to come here, deploy my API, then replace the connection string or the API in that API website function. In my Ethereum website, the API endpoint that the web page sends data to is this guy currently. So if I want to switch to Expedition 2, when it's time for them to register, I'll just simply take this one and put there. All requests coming will be going into this function I just created, and to automatically tag their new cohorts. So they don't need to select any cohorts. To just come in by default, see it's a challenge. What challenge are you part of and what cohort are you? That's what it does. So that's it basically. I think we are officially done for today's class. If you have any questions, you can ask now before we draw the curtain. Do you have any questions, please? No questions. Everyone perfectly understood all I did. Okay. I'm just seeing a message, Innocent. That's no problem. Okay, so with that, we officially draw the curtain on today's class. Thank you all. What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you now.
Okay, I was talking since.
The
question I was asking was when you came to this API gateway, you were like you connected with the Lambda. Was it what you did like prior to doing everything you were doing on VS Code? Because I was thinking
yes,
everything was on VS Code.
No, I didn't create the. I already had this API gateway. You understand? I created this API gateway way before AWS Expedition, because this is for AWS Expedition here. These users you see here. So I've had this API gateway for months. So instead of creating a new API gateway, I only created the Lambda function and the database. They now connected this API gateway to the database, to the Lambda function.
Okay.
Do you have any issue connecting Lambda API gateway to Lambda function, or is it just a question? Hello?
I mean, I didn't join like from the beginning. I was just seeing everything being done in VS Code, and then you were coming here to test it out. So that's why I'm just asking if it was something you've done.
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do this one in class. We've done labs on API gateway like multiple times. So that's why I didn't bother doing this in class.
Yeah, I was thinking you did it, right? But I not see you doing it.
Okay, no, I didn't do it here.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any other questions? Okay.
Documentation on this Sam. Sorry, is there any documentation on this Sam? Because I mean, it's making life easy.
The documentations, there are a lot. There are lots and lots of documentation.
If you can send non-overwhelming ones, that's it.
I don't know how you define. My definition of non-overwhelming and your own definition of non-overwhelming might be different. What will not overwhelm me might shake you small, and what might not shake you might shake me. But I'll check. I'll look for some documentation.
Just send something that one will really can understand. That's just it. That's what I meant.
Everything is written in English. You understand? Don't worry. You understand?
I hope so. Thank you.
I trust you. All right. So this is This is where we'll draw the curtain for today's class. I would like to officially end the class now and stop the recording.